He thinks I'm overreacting, and wants opinions from some cool-headed people on if I'm just acting crazy, or this is something that would cross the line for you. My husband has a group of 8 friends he has been close with since his college days. Kyla is one of his friends. When my husband and I started dating, he introduced me to all of them, and everyone was very friendly. I used to hang out with them frequently. I am an introvert, and so is my husband. I would always ask him to spend time alone as being in social settings just saps all my energy away. His friends, and especially Kyla, always made it a point to tell me how he hangs out with them less after he started dating me. Kyla also had a weird energy around me. If I was with my husband, she would be the friendliest with me. However, as soon as he walked away, she acted like I did not exist. My husband hates to be touched by others, we both are neurodivergent, but Kyla would always tease him by trying to hug him, mess his hair, etc. I never felt she was flirting with him, but just teasing him to make him annoyed. Overall, she just feels like a person who has a severe social boundary issue. We got married 2 years ago, and things have been great between us. Last week, we had our 2nd marriage anniversary and invited a bunch of people. His friends stayed back after all the guests left, and we were all drinking and chatting. One of his friends, Jen, became a bit tipsy and started complimenting me on how beautiful our house is, how I care for my husband, and how he has changed for the better since marriage. Everyone was laughing at my husband at how much of a slob he was when he was single. Jen then pointed at Kyla and said, "You better pay up, cause you had bet that their marriage would not even last for 2 years. Everyone became silent and started changing the topic. I also did not want to spoil the mood, and let it go, but it stuck in my head. After everyone left, I asked my husband what Jen was talking about. He also had noticed Jen saying that and was ready with a full explanation. He told me the story of what happened when we got engaged. When he proposed to me, he had not told his friends that he was going to do that. We went on a trip to Puerto Rico, and he surprised me there. We put our engagement pictures on Instagram while we were on the trip, and it was a big surprise to everyone as we were only dating for 1 year. When he came back and met all his friends, everyone congratulated him. However, Kyla started ranting about how he was a fool to propose so quickly, and she felt that I was not the right girl for him. Seems like she said some unkind things about me, implying I was a gold digger. My husband's family is wealthy, but so is mine. She had said that she bet we would break up within 2 years if we got married. That is why Jen was taunting her about how happy my husband was with me. I was very furious at this point, as I feel this is something he should have told me. I asked him to tell me truthfully if he had ever dated Kyla or had any history with her, as he has always told me that he has never dated anyone from his friend group. He said that he has of course not dated or hooked up with Kyla. However, Kyla had asked him out a few times when they were in college, and he always politely declined. I asked why he said no to her, and he said he just does not have any romantic feelings for her. I can see that because my husband does have a type based on me or the other people he has dated in the past, and Kyla is the opposite of that. I am just mad at her for saying bad things about me, especially after knowing that we were already engaged and betting against my marriage. I told my husband that he needs to minimize contact with Kyla and she is not invited to parties at our house anymore. He feels I am being too harsh for something she said almost 3 years ago. He also pointed out that she has been very supportive to both of us, and also helped a lot during our wedding arrangements. He feels she is just blunt and forthright when she speaks, but does not mean those things. He told me to take some time and calm down, and we would revisit this topic in a week. He is worried this will completely change the dynamics within his friend group, AITA, for wanting him to block her and stop inviting her to our house. Do you think I'm overreacting? I think betting against our marriage and bad-mouthing me behind my back seems like a huge betrayal. I am also mad at my husband that he kept this fact from me, and also never told me that Kyla asked him out during college days. Am I just being crazy and reactive? How would you react in this situation? I don't want to distance my husband from his friends, but I also do not want to see that bitch Kyla's face again. Relevant comments. Commenter. Info. How has Kyla acted since the wedding? Has her behavior changed? You describe a bad behavior in the past tense, so one might believe she's not doing those things anymore. Does she still exhibit boundary issues with your husband? OP. Yes, her behavior with my husband has not changed at all after marriage. However, she is the same with all other friends too. With me, she is fake nice, where she acts like we are best friends in front of my husband, and barely talks to me when he is not around. Commenter. What did he think when you told him that she's totally different when he leaves? OP. He just says she does not know you that well, just ignore her. She has never said anything negative to my face. However, as a girl, you just know when someone does not like you. It's hard to explain to him that it's your feeling and not based on anything she has specifically said or done. Commenter. On blocking her. Especially with the physical contact too. She's so clearly into the husband, and the fact that he's not shutting it down means he likes the extra attention from her. It's one thing to get a friendly hug or maybe an occasional touch on the shoulder from a platonic friend, but shit like playing with his hair. That is 100% flirty behavior. And the fact that he's not shutting it down himself is gross OP. I have to reply here. So my husband is physically allergic to people touching him. He has a startled response, either he jerks them away or tenses up, when someone hugs him and his face turns red. The weird thing is he can hug his parents or sister and does not get the reaction. He never had that issue with me, even when we first started dating. However, even if my sister or parents hug him, he gets that response. So the fact that he shuts down any touch from Kyla is an understatement. Mini update in comments. Just remembered about my post and logged into the account after many months. Things were really horrible for the last few months and that bitch Kyla almost ruined my life. I don't even know how to describe it. I might write about it next week as I saw a lot of messages asking for an update. I just want other women to be careful of such snakes. Update post. I had posted almost 6 months ago regarding my husband's friend Kyla betting that our marriage would not last for more than 2 years. I was upset and had asked my husband to stop talking to her, because she disrespected our marriage. Since then, Kyla has pulled some really pathetic shit to stir up issues between my husband and I. After I wrote the post, my husband was trying to convince me that Kyla was just joking when she made those comments, and it happened so long ago. Kyla messaged me the next day apologizing for her comments and also not making more efforts to connect with me. I accepted her apology and started warming up to her. She started inviting me for brunches and girls' night out with them, and I felt included in their friend group. One day during brunch, I brought up why Kyla really thought our marriage would not work out. Kyla told me that my husband broke up with his long-term ex-girlfriend Joanna 2 months before he started dating me. I knew that part, but Kyla told me that my husband was really heartbroken after the breakup and swore to her that he would stay away from dating anyone. When he met me, my mom set us up on a blind date. She was surprised how quickly we hit it off. Kyla thought that I was his rebound relationship, but when he proposed to me within a year, she was worried that he was making a very rash decision. My husband's family is rich, and she thought it was unwise for him to marry so quickly without knowing me well. She did not know enough about me and that my family is also very well off. That is why she was concerned that I was taking advantage of his vulnerable state. She apologized to me and said that it was wrong for her to assume that, and over the years, she has seen how happy we are together. I appreciated her honesty, and Kyla and I became good friends since then and started hanging out more frequently. Around 2 months ago, my husband went to a conference in Seattle for 3 nights. After he came back, I got a "Hey girly" message on Instagram from Joanna, his ex. She told me that my husband contacted her a few months ago and they met in Seattle during the conference, and she could give me more proof if I wanted. I went through my husband's Instagram, but he seems to have blocked her. I made a mistake of mentioning it to Kyla, as she was the only person honest to me about Joanna, and she went into detective mode to help me. She was still friends with Joanna on Instagram, as they all went to college together, and opened her profile. The message sent to me was from a different profile, with no followers. We checked her photos, and we saw that she attended the same conference as my husband did in Seattle. Kyla suggested I should ask Joanna for more proof and also ask my husband about the same before assuming the worst. I asked my husband if he met Joanna, and he said yes. He told me he just met her in the expo hall and chatted with her for a few minutes. I asked him why he did not mention it to me, and he told me it was just a quick conversation, and he did not think too much of it. He asked me how I knew it, and I told him that Kyla mentioned that she saw her pictures at the conference, and I thought he might have seen her. I messaged Joanna again to share more proof. She told me that they have been chatting for the past 2 months and planned to attend the conference together. She shared a log of their messages, where my husband was actively flirting with her. The screenshots did look legit, but I did not see any of those messages in my husband's Instagram profile. I talked to Kyla about it, as I did not know what to believe. I messaged Joanna to tell us what happened between them, and she told me that he invited her to the room at nights and they hooked up, but she does not have any photos as he insisted. They do not take any pictures together. I immediately realized it was fake and messaged Joanna to fuck off. She kept on insisting they were telling the truth, and she spent the nights with my husband in his room on all 3 nights. I told her that my husband and I were playing video games, Sea of Thieves, for almost 2-3 hours each night after his dinner, as that is what we do to catch up when he is away. Unless Joanna was sitting behind him watching us play until he fell asleep, she was full of shit. I also told my husband about the whole incident and he told me I should have come to him sooner. He told me that he has gone no contact with Joanna ever since they broke up and he just ran into her at the conference. He told me I could check his phone and everything to verify that he has blocked her everywhere. I told him I do not need to, and Joanna might have run into him and just decided to fuck his life by making up stuff. When all the friends met that weekend, my husband and I told everyone about how Joanna sent messages to me and faked everything. Kyla was also telling what happened as she had told her about it. Kyla accidentally let it slip out that it's luckily, we are nerds and played video games at nights before sleeping, else, props go to Joanna for making up a convincing story. I never told Kyla about the video game stuff. I just told her Joanna is full of shit and I blocked her. It took me until I came home to connect the dots. I told my husband about it and he confronted Kyla. She denied it and told him that I told her about the video game stuff on a phone call, but I don't remember doing it. We have since decided to keep our distance from Kyla. Kyla has called me multiple times to meet up, but I just make up reasons that I'm busy. I do not know why she did it, but at this point I am not interested in it and we have decided to just see her on social occasions and avoid hanging out with her as much as possible. I feel stupid that she played me for a fool, and I should have not gone to her when Joanna started messaging me. In hindsight, it seems suspicious that Kyla started telling me about Joanna and at the same time, Joanna claimed to have an affair with my husband. I do not know what her intentions are, but I am mad enough that I will avoid her as much as possible. I wish I had some real proof that she was the one messaging me, so that I could expose her. I also feel bad for suspecting my husband. But I'm glad my husband and I are on the same page now. Relevant comments. Commenter, does your husband also believe that Kyla made up a fake Instagram account, pretending to be Joanna? Because that's pretty psycho behavior. OP, yes. He believed me because I told him that I never told Kyla why I thought the account was fake. It's possible she guessed it if I ever mentioned to her that we played video games at night, but it seemed suspicious she would guess that was exactly the reason why I realized the account was fake. Commenter, why didn't you try to message her real Insta since you knew the one she used to message you wasn't her main? Why not message her main account? That would have cleared it up pretty quick, I would think. Commenter, why didn't you try to message her real Insta since you knew the one she used to message you wasn't her main? Why not message her main account? That would have cleared it up pretty quick, I would think. OP, her Instagram was private. I did not want to follow her as it would have looked really bad for me to add her, when my husband has blocked her. The only way I could see her Instagram was when Kyla showed it to me on her phone. To another commenter, trust me, I thought about this. Firstly, I will look crazy if I reach out to Joanna, my husband's ex, behind his back. Secondly, even if it was her messaging me, she would just lie and tell me it was not her. I also cannot disregard the fact that I started getting messages a week after my husband ran into her and told her that he was happily married to me. I have to accept that Kyla, if it was her, will get away with the BS. We do not have any proof it was her, and all we could do is distance ourselves from her. Commenter, why did you lie to your husband about the fact that this woman had messaged you in the first place? You are the problem here. OP, agree, I should have told him right away. I tried to be sneaky to know if he really met her at the conference. I was half expecting him to deny it if he was trying to hide something happened. I think I let my insecurity get the worst of me. Lessons learned. Commenter, did he bring a gaming PC or Xbox with him to a work conference? OP, we both use Steam Decks to play games together when he is away. When a girl in the gym asked for help while recording, I refused, sparking an unexpected turn of events. Was I wrong? I think I acted rudely with a girl in the gym and wanted to get opinions on if I was the AH in this situation. I, 41M, go to the gym early in the morning around 5:30 a.m. There are generally very few people that come to the gym at that time. There is a girl, early 20s, that also comes to the gym at the same time. We always say hello to each other and have small talk between our sets. She comes in early because the gym is empty, and she likes to record herself working out as she wants to be a fitness influencer or something. She seems dedicated and we have known each other for at least a year. This morning, as I was working out, she came to me and asked for help. She was very excited and told me that she wanted to go for a PR on barbell squat. She asked me if I could spot her as she was not confident if she would be able to do it. I said okay, as this is not the most uncommon thing. For people who are unfamiliar, this is an exercise where you carry a barbell with weights on your back and perform a squat. The spotter has to stand behind the person and support the person in case they fail to get up. As she was getting ready, I saw her phone in the corner and asked her if I could be off camera or if she can stop recording. She said she really wanted to record herself doing it and I will look good on camera. I told her that I really do not want to be on camera as my wife or co-workers may watch the video if she posts it online and may not look good for me. Another reason that I did not tell her was that she was wearing a very revealing outfit, small sports bra and tight shorts, and I really did not feel comfortable being recorded standing behind her. She promised me that she will record it for herself and not post the video. However, I just did not want to be recorded. I told her that I really feel uncomfortable. And if she waits for 30 minutes, one of the trainers may be able to help her. She became really upset and asked me why I am making the situation weird. She accused me of sexualizing her. She asked me if she was a man, would I have done it? I felt she had a point as I have done it for other people. I told her that I would be okay doing it, but I just don't want to be recorded doing it. She again went on a rant about me body shaming her and me being uncomfortable with her perfectly fine outfit. I felt bad that I upset her as she was just trying to work out. I have also asked people to spot me in past, and people always helped. However, I just did not want to be recorded. Am I the age to refuse to spot her because she was recording it? I don't want her to feel that it was because of her clothes, or because she is a girl. However, as a married man, I need to observe some boundaries and really don't want to be recorded in that way with a girl half my age. I am also worried that she recorded our whole conversation and may post it online. I do not know what I should do in this situation and am a bit worried. Relevant comments. Commenter, NTA. People who are pointing out the line of how you think it would look inappropriate if a coworker or wife saw you aren't familiar with lifting. If she reached failure, it would absolutely look bad on you, because people don't understand what spotting and having to assist with squats looks like. OP, that was exactly what went through my mind. Plus, who knows what commentary someone can put on top of those videos to make it go viral. Update. I had posted on a different forum 3 weeks ago about me refusing to help a girl in the gym for spotting her barbell squat because she was recording us. I did not think it would blow up so much that my wife got this story on her TikTok. What happened after was pretty unexpected and my life is a bit absurd right now. I was worried that she would post our conversation about me refusing her help online and show me as the bad guy. I told my wife about the conversation, and she said that she has seen posts where young girls do add nasty voiceovers and make men my age look like creeps for views. My wife told me that I should just complain to the gym management about her for recording me without my consent, just to get ahead of things. When I went to the gym next week, I saw her again. I tried to keep my distance, but she kept on smiling at me. As I finished my sets, she came to me and asked me if we could talk. She wanted to apologize for her behavior from the previous day and how it was wrong of her to assume that I would be okay with her recording me. It was a pleasant surprise, as I was not expecting that. I told her that it was okay, and I just don't like to be recorded in general. She followed me outside and continued the conversation. She asked me how long I had been working out and I could advise her on her form. I told her that there are some really good personal trainers in the gym I could recommend to her, but she told me that she is unemployed and cannot afford them. She told me she will buy me a coffee if I can give her some pointers. At this point, I felt I was just being rude and told her sure, and we went to a nearby coffee shop. Her name is Haley. She graduated last year, moved back to her mom's house and is looking for a job. She was very chubby last year and wants to look like the TikTok fitness models and is trying hard to get in shape. We had a nice conversation, and I was able to help her with some of her questions. She already knew my name and asked me if my wife would be okay if she follows me on Instagram. I told her that the main purpose of that account is for my wife to spy on my friends' lives, so I generally don't use it. She asked me if I use Snapchat, and I had to remind her that I am twice her age. This is where it got crazy. When I came home, I told my wife about what happened. My wife loves her Reels and TikTok and wanted to see if she ever posted the video from the previous week. I only knew that her first name was Haley and how she looked and told my wife about it. When I came back from work in the evening, my wife was already home and sitting on the sofa. She was grinning ear to ear and told me to immediately sit next to her. Apparently, this girl had been posing about me and calling me her gym crush for the last 2 months. My face is blurred out in all the videos. A lot of videos were of her sitting in her car every morning and making up completely fictional romantic stories about our interactions. Each video had like 100+ likes, which my wife says is not a lot, but feels like a lot. She had posted some videos of us just passing each other and smiling, or our conversation where I was telling her to stop recording, with a voiceover about how I approached her in the gym and complimented her body. There was a video from that morning about her coming to me while I was packing up, with her saying how I asked her out for a coffee. She is just making up fictional romantic bullshit for getting likes, and people were commenting and cheering for her. There were also other videos of her working out and posing in the gym locker room. My wife was laughing uncontrollably about how big of a sucker I am and how I'm internet famous now. I told her this needs to stop, but my wife insisted that she is too invested in the drama now and wants to see what happens next. She said that this girl is really young, and just trying to establish herself and get more followers. Plus, she has not done anything inappropriate and is not showing my face in the videos. My wife just wants me to play along and see what crazy Haley does next. So for the last 2 weeks, I have been going to the gym, talking to her every day, and my wife keeps me updated on what story she came up with for the day. We go for a coffee every Wednesday and I am mentoring her about nutrition and what she should focus on, to the best of my abilities. It's all a game for my wife, and I do want Haley to succeed as long as she does not cross a line. However, the whole thing feels really crazy, and I'm too old to deal with this shit. I am not sure how long I can keep up with the act. Her behavior seems innocent, but also, I'm getting a bit uncomfortable with the whole thing now. Relevant comments. Did the girl know OOP is married? OP, yes. She knows I'm married. I wear my ring in the gym and also I talk about my wife all the time to her. I also feel it's a bit weird for a 22-year-old person to make up stories. My wife feels she is just using me as an NPC in her fiction to gain more viewers and create drama. We discussed it and she told me about how some girls just make up stories about bad first dates on TikTok as it gets them a lot of views. My wife feels it's weird, but I need to see the humor in this situation. At least it's entertaining and she wants to know where her story goes next. What was all about in the coffee discussion? OP, what are the coffee discussions like? It seems weird for her to do that if it is just for TikTok attention, it's easier for her to make stuff up. The coffee discussions are very fitness-oriented, and she genuinely has legit questions. We do discuss stuff about our lives, mostly hers, and she shares her struggles in getting a job and life in general for a Gen Z person. However, she has never said anything inappropriate. I feel she must have had some footage of me passing her and smiling and greeting her and just used that in her edits. After being truly abused by my stepfather, I lived with my dad. Recently, I discovered that he chose me over my former stepmother and half-sister. I was sexually abused between the ages 9, 13 by my stepfather. Both he and my mom will be behind bars for many years to come. When I was sent to live with my dad, I was broken. I barely spoke, didn't eat much if at all. I wasn't mad or angry. I was null of any kind of emotion. Basically I was alive but wasn't living. I kept my interactions with everyone to the bare minimum. I was polite but didn't go out of my way to make conversation with anyone. I was more social with my dad but I kept it to a bare minimum. I had nothing left to say to anyone. It took me 2 years for me to be able to allow my dad to show any form of parental affection towards me. That's how withdrawn I had become. Dad was my rock throughout the whole thing. When I experienced night terrors, I would wake up and either find my dad holding my hand or him holding me. He drove me to all of my therapist appointments. He made sure I was eating properly. There were days, I would break down for no reason and he would just hold me and tell me that everything will be okay. He literally went above and beyond for me. I hated the city that we were living in. Because I had so many bad experiences there, it made living there miserable. I was so passive, it was scary. My therapist had told my dad that I was stuck in the victim cycle. I didn't know how to get out. Because of this, I was bullied quite a bit. By the time I was 15, I had been to 3 different schools. It got to the point where my dad pulled me out of public school and enrolled me into online classes. I was always very studious and managed to maintain a 94% average overall, but my life lacked any sort of direction. Nothing would motivate me. Looking back, Dad did spoil me, but at the time I wasn't aware of it. I was so in my own body that I barely acknowledged my surroundings. If I asked my dad for a new bedspread, I would get me a new one plus new furniture. My phone of 5 years broke and Dad got a new one plus a laptop. I was grateful and thanked him. I did share with my half-sister and stepsister at the time. Again, I was being polite. I didn't have any form of relationship with my former stepmother, stepsister, or half-sister. I barely knew what it was like being a son at the time, let alone being a brother. By the time I was 16, Dad had approached me and told me that he and he are moving out. I didn't question it. He had asked me to pack my things and we moved into a rental. I didn't think it was any of my business, so I didn't press the issue. A year later, Dad had divorced my stepmother. One of Dad's business acquaintances offered him a partnership in Boston and he took it. We moved and I felt I was ready to start my senior year of high school in a public school. That year was probably the best year of my life. I was coming out of my shell. There was no fear of being judged or being the odd man out. It was as if I was like everyone else. I felt normal. I became more social, made a lot of friends, got into sports, clubs, and went out more. Us moving probably saved my life. Because we had moved 9 hours away from my half-sister, she would only come visit us on long weekends, a month during summer break. There was always a form of tension between my dad and half-sister. You could just sense it. It got to the point where as she got older, she stopped coming entirely. Me and Dad have always been close. When I had graduated from high school and gave my valedictorian speech, I could see my dad crying in the crowd. I lived with my dad while I attended college. I still do for the time being. Ever since I was a child, I always wanted to be a doctor. Well, I just finished my first year of medical school. Honestly, I feel like a normal young adult in society. I have a job, friends, a boyfriend whom I've been with for 4 years. I'm thriving in all aspects of my life. Recently, I got a FB message from my half-sister. She was apologizing a lot and I had no clue what she was talking about. Turns out, The reason why Dad and I moved out from my stepmother's home was because my half-sister told my stepmother that I was watching her change. Yes, she told her mom that I was watching her change. At the time, I was traumatized of sex. Heck, I was terrified of any form of intimacy. The kid was envious of what Dad was doing for me. She was so envious that she tried to move me out. Well, I guess her mom and my dad got into a big fight, and I'm only going to assume that she did not want me in the house. Because we moved out. I think it's safe to assume my dad didn't believe it. How can someone be so cruel? What did I ever do to her? Those were the questions that were racing through my head. I didn't even respond. More importantly, Dad never let this get back to me. Chances are if I had heard about this when I was 16, that would have been the final nail in the coffin. It also explains the tension between my dad and half-sister. This is a lot to take in, and I have a newfound respect and love for my dad. He gave up this marriage for me so I could live a normal life. Dad is away on a business trip and won't be back for a few more days. I'm missing him a lot lately. Should I bring it up to him when he returns? Also, would it be fair for me to just cut my half-sister out of my life entirely? At the same time, it's sad that their relationship is almost non-existent, and I almost want to help. TLDR. Dad chose me over my stepmother and half-sister after my half-sister told a very dangerous lie that could have potentially ruined my life. Dad kept it from me for 6 years. Should I bring up with him? Edit. I wasn't expecting such a huge response. I just wanted to say thank you for all the feedback. It will take some time, but I will read all of them, or as much as I can. As I was going through the comments, I found a number of people questioning the integrity of this. This is a part of my life. I don't normally like to talk about this. Aside from myself, my dad and close friends, not many people know about this. The fact that people are saying that it's fake, I don't know what to say. It's not my place to try and convince anyone. Believe me, there are times I wish could convince myself it's not real, but that's not possible. When I wrote this, I wasn't thinking about syntax. It was more just getting this out. People question its integrity based on grammatical errors. Forgive me, but I wasn't in the mindset to reread and go over it. As for how I became valedictorian, and a number of people were very curious, I did respond to it in the comments, but I'll post it here too. It was very unorthodox how I became valedictorian after attending a real HS for only a year. My overall average was the highest in my graduating class, but because I was in online classes for my previous years, I wasn't eligible at the time. I met with the grade coordinator and inquired about my chances, and her response was the same. I broke down in front of the coordinator and I told her the truth. Being named valedictorian was something I always wanted. To be that would have been my first accomplishment that I would have achieved based on my own merit. Yes, there is also the likelihood of getting a free ride to colleges. It wasn't trying to be valedictorian for financial reasons. Money wasn't a problem. Dad did make a lot. It was more this being my first official achievement. This would have helped me self-worth as well. The girl who was originally going to be valedictorian did meet with me, and I told her the truth. She actually talked to the administration to let me valedictorian instead. It's something I'll forever be grateful for. That's actually how me and her became friends. Not many people would do that, and in HS. I'll be posting again, I just need a few days. Am I the asshole for asking my husband to help our child while cooking for family? Relatives called me out for treating him like a servant. I, 30F, was assigned to cook for my husband's family during a week-long trip, 11 adults, 4 kids. I sat down to eat after cooking for a few hours, and our child asked for a condiment and a drink. I asked my husband, 40s, if he'd mind getting it, and he had no issue and got up. My meal and his aunt had a fit about this and said, why am I treating him like a servant? I could get up and take care of it so my husband could relax. He had been all day. They've been cold and mean and not speaking to me. I'm wondering if I should have done it myself, or if I should just ask my husband if we can go home. I've got 4 days left. Relevant comments. Top comment. The reason OOP is voted info. Please explain how you were assigned to cook. Nobody except my supervisor assigns me to do anything, and I still have the option of saying no, though there could be consequences. In what way were you making your husband do anything? He could have said no. OP, sorry I tried to make the post short. His aunt rented an Airbnb. We paid it back. I'm a really good cook and his family loved my cooking, so it was my night to do the cooking. All the women were assigned a night. Commenter, are your Mill and his aunt typically set in traditional gender roles? Why in the world would getting the condiment and drink make him a servant and not you? Also, do you have to cook all week, or was this just your night? NTA, but if you ask to go home, you'll really turn this into something big. OP, more info. I tried to make it short in the op. This was just my night to cook. But it is all the women that are cooking. His aunt is a single mother and her sons have never been taught to cook, and their girlfriend's idea of cooking is PBJ. She set the chores as this was her idea and she paid for it. We all sent the money to her. I just feel so low. I'm stuck in this tiny bedroom, smallest in the Airbnb BTW, and being the only married couple kind of felt like a slight, while everyone outside is relaxing. Husband was hanging with me but his mother asked to speak with him. It's been an hour I tried to go out but they all got silent and quiet and just stared at me till I went inside. Commenter. That sucks. Did your husband stick up for you? Or offer to help you cook? OP. He did stick up for me and say it's no big deal but his aunt was yelling at him to sit down and his mother just glared at me. I love my husband to death. He's good at a great many things but I didn't feel like getting food poisoning tonight. Tensions already seemed really high as I took the boat out and I was wearing an appropriate two-piece. Think sports bra kind of bathing suit with long sleeves and swimming shorts. But his aunt called me a hussy and only little girls wear two pieces and I need to respect the PPL around me. Commenter. Are the other people in the larger bedrooms there alone, while the two of you have to share the smallest? OP. It's a 6-bedroom house. Only one other family member brought their partner. But they all brought their kids. His mom originally wanted us to have a different room but his aunt refused. She's like a family bully. Is what I'm guessing. Husband came back and we are talking about what went down. Will update, edit. So his aunt arranged the Airbnb, she assigned the rooms and the chores. She has made other comments to me on this trip that have made me feel bad about myself. Husband just came in after being outside talking with his family for the last hour and he won't go into details but said that we will be staying but if they say one more comment or if I feel any more discomfort we will be leaving. We want to stay as we have some fun events that we don't want our child missing out on tomorrow and Monday. Relevant comments. Commenter. NTA. If they're not speaking to you, just consider that a bonus. I wouldn't want to hear anything assholes like that have to say anyway. If you really want to get a dig in though, you could say to them, if I knew that's all I had to do to get you two to shut your yapping cake holes, I would have done it sooner. OP, that's kinda my plan. Just avoid and do our own thing the best we can. He didn't say much but that his aunt doesn't want her son's GF to think she can boss him around like I do my husband. Sexist, right? He said that this will be the last time he makes me suffer going on a vacation with them and will take me to some tropical island next year to make up for it. Commenter, I just read your edit and I agree with the idea of staying so your kid doesn't miss out on fun, but what the hell is this? He won't go into details but said that we will be staying. OP. He told me some of the brief details but didn't want to repeat the sexist and rude comments his aunt made while his mother just stayed quiet. He did tell me that his aunt didn't want her son's GF to think that they could boss her son around like I do my husband or to dress inappropriately like myself. I've got a lot of insecurities about my body image and he tries to protect me. I'm 5'2", 110 pounds and worked hard to lose a lot of baby weight so I was proud and thought wearing an appropriate, very covered, two-piece would be okay. I was called a hussy. Update. So this morning while getting ready the cousin's GF came and spoke to me and said that what they said was completely wrong and disrespectful and that she doesn't believe what they said about me. Made me very happy. Anyway, as we were heading out to go hiking his aunt couldn't help herself I guess and said at least I don't look like I belong on a pole like I did yesterday. My 5-year-old yelled at her and said to stop being mean to my mommy before we could say anything. My husband had a few choice words for her in front of everyone. So anyway, we are driving home. Relevant comments. Commenter. So what treats will the kiddo be getting for defending mom? Seems like you're doing a good job there and have good backup from your spouse. OP. We are taking him out to his favorite restaurant for dinner once we get back into town and to his favorite ice cream shop to have a sundae. My husband really went for the kill after his aunt's comment cause I was lacing up my hiking boots. He had our son go up to the room and get his bag and bent down to help lace up my boot for me. He then told his aunt that I am his partner, not his maid or servant, and that she was a jealous witch that attacks me because she wishes she looked as good as I did, and that he was lucky to have a hard-working wife and mother to his child who also looked amazing. That we do things for each other as a team and that she is just a miserable old witch and we wouldn't be seeing them again. They've been blowing up his phone but he turned it off. OP follows up with, I won't say we are perfect or never have fights or innocent spats over the most silly things. But one thing is for sure, after 15 years we won't let each other be disrespected and we always have each other's backs. That is what we are hoping to teach our son. That even though things may get rough in life we handle them with grace and respect and always have each other. I want my stepson to stay with his mom during our vacation. My husband agrees with my perspective and I don't think I'm being unreasonable. July 21st, 2023. My husband, who is 39 years old, and I have been married for 5 years. We have 2 daughters together, ages 5 and 2. I also have a 10-year-old son from my previous marriage, but I am a widow. My husband's ex is barely involved in stepson's life at all. They got divorced when stepson was 2 and his ex wanted a fresh start so my husband did the decent selfless thing and had complete custody of their son, even though he'd wanted shared custody. I got a bonus at work and I really want to go on vacation with just my family just once. We've been on family vacations all together lots of times. But just once I want to spend my money going on vacation where I'm not looking after someone else's kid. I want my stepson to stay with his mom while we go on vacation. My husband sees my point of view and is okay with it. I don't think I'm being at all unreasonable. My mom found out what I was planning and says I'm being a complete asshole. These are the reasons she says I could be the asshole. First of all, my mom says that if my stepson's mom isn't properly involved in his life, I should be even more involved in his life to compensate. I think this is a completely unfair expectation. Second, she also says that I'm being a hypocrite for taking my son, but I think that's totally different because my son doesn't have another parent. I'm all he's got. If stepson's mom won't take him just for once, then obviously he'll come on vacation with us. But I don't think I'm the asshole to ask if I can have a vacation with my own family just one time. It's not like I hate stepson or something, he's a nice kid, he's just not mine. Am I the asshole? Relevant comments. If my math is right, you and your husband got married when stepson was 4. What kind of relationship does stepson have with you versus with his bio mom? OP. Yes, he was 4, and as I said, he barely sees his bio mom. I'm not sure what point you're making. Verdict, asshole. Update 1, July 22nd, 2023. We definitely won't be going on vacation without a stepson. After a couple hours of replies, I decided to show this to my husband. We sat down and had a really long talk about it. He told me he's never been comfortable with my attitude to stepson, but didn't know how to say it to me before. I don't want to be a bad person, I just never thought of stepchildren being yours. I don't think it would be easy for anyone to accept this level of criticism, but all your replies have shown me I have a lot of work to do. As many of you suggested, and so did my husband, I intend to see a therapist to help me with that. As I said, I don't hate stepson in any way. I have never been deliberately cruel to him. I've just always thought of him as my husband's child. But I realize my mindset needs to change. So I'm going to start working on that. I want my family to be the best it can be, and I need to accept that it includes my stepson. I understand that now, and I'm going to start seeing a therapist to become a better person. We've also talked about maybe having family therapy too. I've also made up with my mom, and she is 100% behind the changes I want to make in my life. It wasn't easy to hear everything you said, but I understand that I needed to hear it. Update 2. June 20th, 2024. June 20th, 2024. In July 2023, I wrote a post on the Am I the A subreddit about taking a family vacation without my stepson. I wasn't given permission to post an update to my original post on the subreddit, because the replies I got were too heated and the mods advised me to post an update to my profile instead. When I made my original post, I was told by literally thousands of people that I was the A, and it helped me see how wrong I was and had been for the last 5 years. I booked a therapy appointment the following week and started working through my issues. My own father died when I was less than a year old. I don't even remember him. My mother married another man when I was 7, but he left when I was 11 and I never saw him again. It hurt me in a way I'd never processed before. I loved him, he'd been my dad, and suddenly he was just gone. That taught me that step-relatives weren't part of your family. They weren't forever. I always thought I was doing better than my ex-stepdad. Because I provided for my stepson and I stayed in his life, I was better than my ex-stepdad. But I made my stepson feel the way my ex-stepdad made me feel when he left me, and I regret it so much. A little while after I started therapy, we started family therapy too. The therapist helped me explain to my stepson the way I felt about step-relatives and why I'd always behaved the way I did. He cried and said he was afraid that I just didn't like him. And we had the first proper talk we'd ever had. I told him that wasn't true, and I had just been a bad step-parent like my ex-stepdad had been to me. My relationship with my stepson is so much better now. We spend time together, just the two of us, and except for this post, I never call him, or think of him as my stepson. He's my son. I accept now that he'll always be my son, that unlike my ex-stepdad, he's forever. Even if something happens between me and his dad, he'll still be my son. Most of all, he always called me by my first name, but last Thanksgiving, he asked to start calling me Mom. It made me so happy. I told him that I loved him and he said he loved me too. Since then, he always just calls me Mom. A lot of people also talked about the ways my husband needed to improve, to be more assertive and protective of his children. He knows that. It's very easy to see the problems when they're presented to you all at once in a Reddit post, but when things happen day to day, it's a lot harder to realize how issues are building up. But he's working hard, like we both are, to try to make our family the happiest it can be. We both know we still have to keep working at this. I'm still in therapy and we're still having family therapy. But I'm grateful to work at it. I'm grateful to have all my children. It's very hard for me to write this, to think about the way things were before I started therapy. It makes me cry every time I think about it. But I want to thank you, Reddit. I wrote my original post just looking for validation for my own point of view, and I never thought the internet could change my life this way. But it has. I feel like for the first time, we're truly a family. Thank you all. Spot on comments. I remember when my brother married his wife, my mom was kind of distant with my niece at first. My brother had only been with her mom for under 3 weeks when they eloped, because she was terrified of getting attached to the baby just for the relationship to not work and never be allowed around her again. It wasn't until my stepdad asked, But what if the relationship works and you wasted all this time you could have been loving her? And it really changed the way she interacted with my niece. My brother has since legally adopted my niece, but he and sister-in-law just had their vow renewal, after 10 years of marriage, on Sunday as well. He's a gem, not a super demonstrative guy but a giant soft inside. He's also the sole reason I was able to leave an abusive relationship. I was sure he wouldn't want me moving back home with my newborn until he casually told me I should just come home, and I needed to be with my family. Turns out my mom had no idea that conversation happened until he told her later on. It was 100% his words and not my mom as I had originally kind of assumed. My church banned our youth worship leader for condemning Christian nationalism. The band plans to walk out during their next performance. My church's youth group has a youth band that leads worship during youth, but the church also has them lead worship on Sunday mornings every few weeks, to promote the youth band when the usual worship team has a week off. I'm not in the band, but I often help with lyric PowerPoints along with another girl, but not when the band plays on Sundays. The main singer of the youth band is the daughter of a youth assistant and the daughter is an assistant too. We'll call her Emma, she's 20. I'm writing because of what happened the last time the youth band led Sunday worship on 6/30. That led to Emma and her family leaving the church. In between one of the songs, Emma said she felt led to say that Christian nationalism wasn't of God, because forcing people to believe went against the basis of Christianity because God gave free will and too many Christians forgot that. She also said there would be no short and narrow path if people were forced to walk it before saying Project 2025 was advertised as Christian but resembled nothing of God, because God never forced people to believe in him. No one confronted her or anything as it was brief, and they played a few more songs along with the closing song after the pastor finished his sermon. But when we got to youth on Friday night, Emma and her mother weren't there. And we were later informed, by the youth pastor, that Emma and her mom would no longer be helping the youth before a bunch of stuff about giving others the chance to be lead singers because Emma had left the church. However, word got out from one of the band's players that Emma told the band that she got banned during the week and that her parents left the church with her, so they already knew before we found out at youth. The reason I'm making this post is because of a conversation I had with the band, and other PowerPoint girl, the same Friday the youth pastor announced it and the conversation was private from the rest of the kids. Long story short, the band is upset about what happened to Emma and they've been throwing around ideas on what to do. The one they're heavily considering is a walkout the next time they're scheduled to play on Sunday after playing the intro song. Service opens with an intro song before someone comes on stage to welcome everyone before worship continues, and they would voice support for Emma before walking out together. They haven't told anyone not associated with the band because they don't want anyone to spill the deets. But the main thing we're debating is repercussions from our parents and whether or not it's worth the risk. There's likely a few weeks until the band plays on Sunday again, and they still haven't decided on a new lead singer yet. I also want to add that the church didn't upload the worship portion of the service with Emma and only uploaded the sermon from that day. They always include worship on their YouTube upload of the service. Most of the concerns were around tuition punishments as some of them have their parents helping pay, but they still want to do something. And while I'm not in the band technically aside from coordinating PowerPoint lyrics occasionally, I figured the least I could do was get advice from other adults anonymously because we don't want to ask our parents for obvious reasons, and maybe others could see more pros and cons that we can. I appreciate any advice that anyone gives and will relay it to the band too. Thanks to anyone who read this to edit. I forgot to add this detail in my post, but the pastor of our church has used the pulpit to speak politics in the past and has even mentioned support of a presidential candidate on numerous occasions along with other political topics on occasion too, Roe v. Wade and gay rights. So while I agree that politics probably shouldn't be spoken in church, some of the band said that Emma was tired of the often political topics being brought up during sermons, thus why she said what she said. Comments from the first post. Comment 1, OP, I am not Christian, but standing up to the tyranny of Project 2025 is the most Christian thing I've heard. That sounds exactly like what you should be doing against something that represents hate and violence. Christian nationalism is why many people are starting to make fun of or roll their eyes at Christian values. Because from what we see, Christian nationalism is the exact opposite thing Jesus would want or support. I don't believe in him, but I do think God/Jesus would be proud of you. You sound like a good person. Comment 2, hey. I hope you see this despite all of the responses. I was raised Catholic. I consider myself otherwise now, but that is how I was raised, and I was an altar server and lead singer for Mass. I was very involved in my church. My priest was an amazing human being who never brought politics into service. He was so kind and so caring to everyone in the community. When I lost my faith, he was an amazing person to talk to, and he never shamed me. That being said, other people in the church hated this about him and became vocal about it. It was exactly this political behavior that made me turn away from the church in the first place. I thought it was horrible to mix politics and faith. I strongly disagreed with it and wanted no part in it. I started exploring the history of my faith and other faiths. I wanted to know why. Why were we trying to dictate people's lives, when Jesus told us not to? Why were we cruel to the poor and the sinful, when Jesus' message was to forgive? Why when the church had so much wealth and power, Did they wield that power like a club, forcing themselves onto the vulnerable and desperate? In the end, it is all about control. Whether you believe in God or not is one thing. But believing in the church is to believe in a man-made organization. Flawed people created these institutions, and like people, they are flawed too. A community organization has the power to uplift as much as it has the power to control and beat down. And that is what it all comes down to, doesn't it? Your friend could not be controlled. So they kicked her out. And now here comes the big question. Knowing all of this, can your conscience be at peace if you stay silent? When I was your age, I could not. Do what you believe is truly right, even if it's hard. Even if it's uncomfortable. You will always become better for it. Edit. Wow. Thanks for the awards, guys. And OP, if you see this, please update us. I would love to know how this update. I want to thank to everyone who commented on my original post because it was way more than I expected, and many of you had really helpful advice. This is a small update with some really surprising things that happened since. First, the band is still going through with the walkout, and they're keeping it within the band so that no other kids tell their parents who might tell leaders. It would have been awesome to include others, but the risk of the church catching wind was too great. Second, we have a date of 8 quarters when the youth band will do worship for the adults again. Third, the youth pastor appointed a singer from within the group who will take turns singing on Sundays with future participants in the coming weeks. Fourth, the new singer agreed that the church's handling of Emma was BS. Fifth and most exciting, 2 of the band members told non-religious relatives about the situation and fear of punishment, and they agreed to come to the service and let them head to their cars in the parking lot straight from the walkout, for safety. They won't leave the lot in case some parents try to claim kidnapping, but we'll be in their cars if all goes well, and the rest of us are going to ask our relatives too. Sixth, one of the band members told a teacher they knew from school who's thinking about coming and walking out too. And seventh, one of the band members wrote a little something that the lead singer will read before they walk off stage, and it would be great if anyone with editing experience could help to make it clearer or provide advice on what to add. They tried to keep it short. I will make a post about their write-up in the near future. Here's how we hope it happens. The band will play the opening song, which officially starts service, and usually lets people know it's starting. Many make their way from the foyer during the intro song. And after someone gives the welcome prayer after the opening song, the lead singer will then give the speech before the band walks off stage, and I will walk out with them from the pews along with relatives' friends. One relative said she might bring some people she knows too, which could make more of a statement to the church to see adults leaving too. One of the relatives will also record the whole thing in case any parents don't react well to it, and I will update after it happens. If anyone has any further advice, it would be appreciated and I'll bring it to the band. Most of the band, outside of 2 seniors, aren't old enough to vote this year, but this is a chance to stand up for what's right against something that is adamantly infusing itself into Christianity, Christian nationalism, and making Christianity lose all of its respect in our opinion. We don't expect change to happen in the church as a result of our walkout, but it's a small thing we can do to say we did our part when faced with it ourselves. Another commenter put it best when she asked if we'd be able to live with ourselves if we did nothing, and the answer has been no for us so far. I also want to add something I forgot to clarify in my first post. Emma didn't say what she did out of the blue. She'd been vocal about the pastor talking politics for some time according to the band, and I've seen much of it too. However, a lot of people sent DMs disagreeing with the band's decision. So before I get into it, I want to give specifics of what the pastor has done. The pastor mentioned Trump from the pulpit numerous times, including the aftermath of the 2020 election, to voice discontent over the results. He has also celebrated Roe v. Wade's overturning from the pulpit, Pride Month during June, and even compared Trump's legal trial to how Jesus was persecuted leading up to his crucifixion, things that have no place being vented about from the pulpit, and this has happened over the course of a few years. I received a few DMs in the aftermath of my first post, and some were encouraging while others not so much. A few people, who said they were Christians, said that Emma was wrong to use the microphone to hijack the service, with her words, because she should have talked to the pastor first while calling her actions immature. However, when I showed the band the advice for my posts, I also told them about the DMs, and they said that Emma spoke to a leader about the pastor's political sermons in the past. But nothing came from it as he continued to speak politics from the pulpit frequently. Some people also said that our walkout wasn't godly, because we, like Emma, would be hijacking the service for a publicity stunt when church was supposed to be about God. Some people called us immature among harsher things, but we disagree for 2 reasons. First, who is supposed to call out the misuse of the pulpit if not people who attend the same church where it's misused? A few DMs said to do nothing and pray for God to change the pastor's heart, but he's been doing this for years. And second, the Bible gives guidance on how to call out improper behavior in the church in Matthew 18:15, 17. Dealing with sin in the church. 15. If your brother or sister sins, go and point out their fault, just between the 2 of you. If they listen to you, you have won them over. 16. But if they will not listen, take 1 or 2 others along, so that every matter may be established by the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses. 17. If they still refuse to listen, tell it to the church. And if they refuse to listen even to the church, treat them as you would a pagan or a tax collector? Emma has already talked to a leader one-on-one, and the band has voiced displeasure about Emma's ban to the youth pastor, only for him to disagree and say that Emma was out of line. Regarding the part about, tell it to the church, I suppose the how might be up to interpretation. Maybe telling the church means telling a church leader instead of the congregation on stage. But Emma and the band have talked to various leaders, including an elder too, aside from our youth leader, only for years of political rants from the pulpit to continue. When Jesus flipped tables in Matthew 21:12, we believe he did it because people were using the temple to sell things that had nothing to do with God, and we believe that politics falls into the same boat. Someone commented a link in the comments of my first post that I never saw. But I showed the band, and we couldn't agree more. Pastor Loren Livingston talked about the role of politics in the church and how politics shouldn't be combined with Christianity. I still plan to speak with my parents ahead of 8 quarters, and I'll share the write-up the band is working on really soon. I really appreciate everyone who commented too. Lastly, I want to clarify that the walkout is the band's decision entirely. I am not a member of the band, I just do PowerPoint lyrics during youth, and I'm not even in the band's group chat with Emma. As some of the band members are contemplating punishments from parents, 2 seniors who are concerned with their parents removing tuition help. I will support whatever they decide while understanding that they have to take care of their future too, as many commented. If they decide to continue with the walkout, I will support them and walk out from the pews. But if they change their mind because the repercussions are too great, I will respect that and continue to support them. Comments from the update. Comment 1. My views on religion and churches are a whole other thing. I'm impressed by the conviction to your sense of right and wrong and your need to not sit by while someone spews falsehoods from their platform, a platform which Christians will claim is supposedly a place from which love and truth emanate. Much respect to you and yours. Those telling you to pray on it and that it isn't your place are cowards. Being afraid to rock the boat is how religions get twisted. It sounds like your church is well down the slippery slope of becoming a cult to a guy who, when asked about his favorite Bible verse, responded vaguely, like he hasn't read the book. OP. I was a little surprised when a few of the people who called themselves Christians in the DMs even used profanity against my first post, but change doesn't happen unless it's addressed, and it's not like Emma and the others haven't addressed it with numerous leaders over the years. Comment 2. It is worth remembering that the original idea behind separating church and state was to protect religion from being tarnished by politics. The underlying idea was that religion is a garden that must be protected from the wilderness of the world. This church seems to be a prime example of that necessity. Comment 3. I have a lot of respect for all of you for taking this stand. Christian nationalism has no place in the church. It is completely against the teachings of the Bible. Stand strong in what you are undertaking. You are biblically grounded in your stand. The church was given its mission by Jesus, to preach the good news in order to bring people to Christ. The church is not, nor should it ever be, a mouthpiece for politics. I will keep all of you in my prayers. You are doing the right thing, even though it may feel scary. Standing up against power is never easy. Comment 4. Hey, Christian over here. First, I love that you have biblical references for what you guys are doing. Second, the idea of comparing Trump to Jesus no matter the political views of yourself or the pastor is quite honestly blasphemous, so you're 100% doing the right thing. And third, you might not be old enough to vote yet, but here's the thing, if you have conviction about anything, get passionate. In this case, get mad. Rock the boat and use your voice. It's what we're called to do. Will it be difficult and scary sometimes? Yeah, absolutely, but things that matter often are. So what I'm saying is you kids absolutely rock. You're far better examples of Christ-like behavior than your pastor is giving out right now, and mad respect for that. Remember Joshua 1:9 and God's command, as you kids do this, have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. Ex-wife cheated with golden child brother and had his child. Now, my family, which has always hated me, begs for money after my promotion. My ex-wife cheated on me with my golden child brother and had his baby. Now, my family, who always despised me, is begging for money after my recent promotion. I, a 29-year-old man, divorced my 27-year-old wife 2 months ago. She had been having an affair with my estranged brother, also 27, and 4 months ago I discovered the truth when she revealed her pregnancy. She initially tried to convince me that the baby was ours, but my brother's frequent visits made me suspicious. I decided to check her phone, confronted her with the evidence, and she confessed to the affair, having no other choice. My family and I had been estranged since I left home at 18. They always treated me like an outsider, while my brother was the golden child. I vividly remember a party that was supposed to be for me, but turned out to be a celebration for my brother. When I confronted my parents about it, they told me they didn't want my brother to feel left out after my acceptance letter and that I should focus on uplifting him instead. That moment broke me and I vowed never to return to them. I put myself through college with loans and a job, then rented a small apartment with a friend after graduation. I never spoke to my parents during this time, and they didn't reach out to me either. Last year, my brother contacted me online, asking if I wanted to reconnect with him and our parents, who supposedly missed me. A lot had changed since I left home, including my marriage to my ex-wife 2 years ago. Despite my comfortable life, I hadn't moved on from my family's past treatment, so I agreed to meet them. Our initial reunion was awkward and uncomfortable, but they seemed to be making an effort to mend our relationship, so I felt obliged to reciprocate. I invited them to my home, which turned out to be my first mistake, as it introduced my brother to my ex. They met, started an affair, and she got pregnant. I was ecstatic when I initially thought the baby was mine. However, my brother's increased visits after the pregnancy announcement raised my suspicions. His behavior, like touching my wife's pregnant stomach and speaking to it, made me uncomfortable. My ex downplayed it, but I couldn't shake the suspicion that my brother had a deeper connection to the baby than he was admitting. 6 months into the pregnancy, I decided to go through her phone while she was asleep. What I found confirmed my worst fears. The text between my ex and my brother proved that the baby was actually his, and they had been together for quite some time. My ex had no intention of ever letting me know the baby wasn't mine. She and my brother planned to tell me about the affair after the baby was born, then she would divorce me and get together with my brother. They intended to live off the fortune from the child support I'd be paying. The next morning, I confronted her about the text. Although she tried to deny it at first, she eventually confessed. That marked the end of our 2-year marriage. Naturally, my parents sided with my brother and my ex. All their talk about us being equally important to them were just empty words. When my ex and my brother announced our divorce on social media and her decision to marry him, my entire family fully supported their decision. Nobody cared that they had destroyed my mental health and broken my trust. My ex had lied to me for 6 months, making me believe the baby was mine. It felt like I had lost not just my wife, but also my child, and it hurt immensely. My parents told me that this was for the best and refused to acknowledge that my brother had wronged me. They even suggested that I should be happy for my ex and brother and join the celebrations. Once again, I cut them out of my life, which complicated my divorce. My ex-wife walked away with a huge settlement sum in my car, all because my family sided with her during the divorce proceedings since she was with my brother now. She and her lawyer fabricated a story about how I was toxic and controlling, and how I had forced her to quit her job, even though it was her own choice. My family backed up their claims, saying they had cut me off because of my misogynistic attitude and temper tantrums. With the evidence stacked against me, I lost a lot of money in the divorce, but thankfully, I got to keep the house. When the divorce was finalized, I was just relieved that I was done with this mess and wouldn't have to deal with these horrible people ever again. Fortunately, there's no waiting period for a divorce where I live, and my ex-wife didn't contest it, so I was able to wrap it up quickly and move on with my life. It was tough to forget everything, but I immersed myself in work and pushed myself to improve, hoping to move on from this nasty episode as quickly as possible. That paid off, as I got a promotion with a better position, higher salary, and a better company car. The works basically. I couldn't have been happier, so I decided to treat myself to a solo dinner at one of my favorite restaurants. I made the mistake of posting about it online, and within a day or two, my mother contacted me, asking me to visit them. I was baffled as to what they could possibly want from me now, given that we hadn't spoken since the divorce was finalized, and they had supported my ex and her lies. I managed to ignore her for a few days, but then she started calling me relentlessly. Eventually, when nothing else worked, she showed up at my office and refused to leave, getting into a fight with the receptionist, which was quite embarrassing. So I promised to visit in a few days, which finally convinced her to leave. A couple of days later, I finally visited my family. They had used the settlement amount to move into a bigger house to accommodate the baby, who had been born just over 3 weeks ago. I guess the alimony was also being used to pay the bills, but it didn't really bother me since the alimony was a small part of my salary at this point, and I could easily afford it. My brother wasn't home, and my ex was asleep, so it was just my parents who spoke to me. I didn't bother with any small talk and just waited for them to get to the point. After about 5 minutes of silence, my father blurted out that my brother had been fired from his job, and the alimony and settlement weren't enough anymore. They mentioned they had seen my post about the promotion and were hoping I could help them out since they were running low on money. My parents had retired a long time ago, my brother was jobless, and my ex obviously wasn't going back to work anytime soon. The alimony wasn't sufficient to cover the expenses for a family of 5, especially with a newborn in the house. I was aware of this, but I was shocked that they had the audacity to approach me for money after everything that had happened. I was so stunned that I couldn't speak for a few minutes. Finally, I came to my senses and decided I didn't need to entertain any of this. I simply got up and left without a word. As I reached the door and opened it, I found my brother standing outside. My parents were urging me to stay and listen, and my brother looked a bit alarmed to see me there. I still didn't say anything and continued to leave. It was raining heavily, and the short walk to my car parked outside their lawn left me completely drenched, worsening my already terrible mood. This is where I might have been at fault because my parents and brother followed me. and while I was looking for my keys in my pocket, they decided to ask for help one last time. This time, it was my brother who made the plea. He's always been smug and arrogant, a direct result of our parents' favoritism, so it was strange to see him asking me for help. It must have been difficult for him, so they were definitely honest about their dire situation. Anyway, I lost my cool and ended up telling them to leave me alone and that they could beg on the streets if they were that desperate for cash, since a stranger who knew nothing about them was more likely to pity their condition than I was. Having said that, I got in my car and drove away, leaving them in the rain. I'm not going to lie. It was pretty satisfying to do that to my family since they had done nothing but mistreat me my whole life. It's been a couple of days since that incident and now I'm second-guessing myself. My mother has been texting me non-stop, and I feel so guilty for not helping them out. I know I have a lot, and sending them a little money wouldn't hurt me, but after everything that's happened, it feels like I'm being used. Frankly, I decided not to help them out. It was a big deal for me since I felt terribly guilty about abandoning them, but then I realized they had been doing that to me my entire life. Even during the divorce, they threw me under the bus, so why should I hesitate to do the same to them? I told my mother to stop pestering me, or I'd be forced to get my lawyers involved, and it wouldn't end well for them. Naturally, that irked them, so my brother showed up at my house a few days ago to talk. He said he felt sorry for how I'd been treated during our childhood but couldn't help that he was inherently better than me, which is why he got preferential treatment. He also said I should stop being weird with our parents and just help them out since they're in a tough spot, instead of holding grudges like a child. I laughed in his face because of how demented he sounded. I told him that instead of trying to put me down and manipulate me into helping, he should probably be out looking for a job. That touched a nerve, and he started yelling about how I was just jealous that our parents and even my ex-wife preferred him over me, and that I was taking revenge by refusing to give them money. I didn't bother to fight back and just agreed, saying that all I was doing was getting revenge, and there wasn't much he could do about it. He got super pissed off and threatened to come after me and force me to cough up the money, saying I'd regret ever speaking to him that way. Honestly, I'm not taking any of that seriously. He can try to scare me all he wants, but it's just not going to work because I know he's not capable of doing anything to me. I'm unbothered. A few days ago my brother visited me and tried to convince me to help them, but he was unsuccessful. My parents had already tried in the past, and it didn't work out for them either. This time, my ex decided to call me up and speak to me. I was skeptical about answering, but I decided to pick up because if I didn't they'd probably visit again and waste more of my time. So I spoke to her, and it was astonishing how entitled and cruel these people could be. She started very politely, explaining that, as I already knew, she and her family were struggling with money. While she acknowledged that I had no obligation to help them after everything they'd put me through, she still wanted me to consider being the bigger person. She tried to evoke sympathy by reminding me that my parents had paid for everything while I was growing up and that she had tried her best to be a good wife. Sure, except for the part where my parents didn't care about me and always preferred my brother, and she ended up cheating on me with the same brother I used to complain about. That didn't work at all, and I told her that while I felt bad about their situation, I was already spending a lot of unnecessary money paying her alimony, which she technically didn't even deserve since she cheated on me but managed to get because my family had no problem lying and making me the villain for their gain. She started sobbing on the call and told me that I was being selfish and heartless, which was just ironic. When I still refused to help, she said my brother was right and that I'd left her no choice but to get the law involved, threatening to demand higher alimony and drag me to court to humiliate me once again. Honestly, I'd like to see them try. The first time around, I was so emotionally drained and depressed that I didn't even bother fighting back or trying to prove them wrong. I just gave in and agreed to pay the alimony without attempting to disprove their claims. I was never toxic or controlling or any of the things they claimed, so she had no reason to cheat on me and didn't deserve a single dollar from the divorce. But whatever, I didn't care back then and just wanted to get the divorce over with, regardless of the financial impact. This time though, I'm ready to fight and make sure my family learns the lesson of a lifetime. In a shocking turn of events, my ex-wife followed through and actually filed for a higher amount of alimony, citing my recent promotion. But this time, I wasn't letting things slide. I got all our mutual friends involved, explaining everything that was happening and filling them in on the past, since most of them only knew we had separated without knowing the real reason. They were obviously very shocked, and I asked if they'd testify against my ex-wife if needed. They agreed readily. I also told my lawyer that I wanted to discontinue the alimony altogether since she didn't deserve it. I spent the past few days gathering all the evidence I could find of my parents and brother being horrible people who never treated me like an equal and are now hounding me for money because of my promotion. I'd had enough and needed to get rid of these parasites once and for all, so I wasn't going to consider their feelings at all. I managed to convince some of my cousins, who had seen me treated like an outsider in my own home, to speak on my behalf, and they kindly agreed, even though we were never particularly close. My lawyer was pleased with the evidence we gathered and said we might actually be able to stop paying alimony. It was already known that she cheated on me, but the reasons she gave, painting me as the villain and my brother as the hero, were all lies. Even though I hadn't fought back the last time, I was determined to set the record straight this time, and I did. My family had nothing to say when I presented several video testimonials from friends and a couple of relatives, proving that everything my family had said was a lie and that I wasn't the person they made me out to be. They probably thought they'd be let off the hook as easily as before, but I wasn't emotionally fragile anymore. Honestly, everything they put me through made me a lot stronger. Yesterday, it was finalized that I no longer have to pay my ex any alimony, thanks to the new information that came to light. I was probably the happiest man on earth when I realized it was finally over. Seeing the smug look wiped off my family's faces and my ex on the verge of tears was incredibly satisfying. But honestly, I couldn't care less about her crying anymore. I was just done with the whole ordeal. I thought I'd go home, treat myself to some great takeout, and enjoy a movie, but of course, my family had to do everything in their power to ruin my happiness. I was only a few yards from my house when I noticed my brother's car parked right outside. Confused about why he'd be there, I still went inside, only to find my family standing outside my door, blocking my way in. I was taken aback and didn't know what to say, but decided to act unbothered and told them to get off my property or I'd call the police. That's when my dad spoke up, telling me I should be ashamed of myself for what I'd done. He lectured me about having no sense of responsibility towards my family and accused me of betrayal for not helping them when they needed it most. When he finished, I refused to engage or respond, standing there silently. I didn't want to give them the satisfaction of getting a rise out of me, which I guessed was their goal, to make me so emotional that I'd eventually give up and do something rash and stupid. But I'm not an idiot, and their desperate measures weren't going to help their case, which they should have realized by then. My silence probably pissed them off even more, and despite my mother demanding that I treat my dad with respect and talk to him, I still refused to speak. I could see them getting agitated because they clearly hoped for a huge fight, but nothing of the sort was happening. After some more yelling, my brother finally snapped and grabbed me by the collar. He then tried to hit me, but my dad managed to pull him back just in time while he yelled about how I was nothing but a jealous loser who would never amount to anything. It was really funny coming from an unemployed guy still living with his parents and begging his brother for money, but okay. I told them they needed to leave or I'd actually call the cops. Given their financial situation, they should probably make a run for it within the next 5 minutes. Begrudgingly, they went away, but not before one last-ditch attempt by my mother to shame me into coughing up some money. It still didn't work and eventually, they left. It's been almost a day since that incident and they haven't tried to contact me since. I'm truly hoping it stays this way. I discovered my so of 3 years was texting back and forth with another person every day and was sending nude photos to each other. A little bit of backstory, SO and I have been together for 4 years and about 2 years ago when the Rona hit, I moved in with him as we both lost our respective jobs and needed to save a bit from gas and utilities. Since then I have found a new office job and so take some odd jobs online but he basically stays at home most of the time. So has always been on the controlling side, he wanted me to cut all my male friends from my life. Hindsight is 20/20, I know, but in his defense, he also cut all contacts with women, or at least to my knowledge. So has always been very adamant that he doesn't condone cheating and even if someone else in his life was a cheater, he would cut them out of his life. The relationship has had its ups and downs, we have had a fair share of arguments and a few months ago we hit a rough patch but recently things were looking okay for a while. Or so I thought. So has become quite guarded with his phone lately, including hiding it if I look over his shoulder. He has never done this before and it's very not like him. I am very open with my personal tech items, he's always welcome to look through my phone and laptop because I have nothing to hide. We even know each other's phone passwords. My gut feeling kept telling me that something was wrong so when I got up for work this morning while he was still sleeping, I admit, I shouldn't have done what I did, I took his phone from the nightstand and checked out his conversations. So has been chatting with a girl he met online, 25. I only skimmed through the last few messages as I didn't want him to wake up and catch me snooping but they had been texting back and forth every day while I was at work and sending each other nudes. I was so shaken and disgusted. I don't know when it all started but I assume it's been at least a month because that's when I first noticed the suspicious phone guarding behavior. Honestly, no matter how much I look for a solution, there's no coming back from this. I know I have to leave. I haven't confronted him yet because I don't want him to try and persuade me to stay or spin it that it's my fault. I also don't believe in closure so there's really no use in telling him that I know. Here's where I need advice. I have a place to move to and I have to move all my stuff. I don't want to have him damage my stuff to spite me or something. He has a history of throwing my possessions when angry, so I'll have people come help me move when he's not in the house. We have separate finances so that's not an issue. The problem is, we have a dog. I adopted him with his approval when I moved in with him. I'm saying it's technically my dog since I do 90% of the dog activities, he rarely takes him out and I buy all the dog toys and dog food. Basically, he's the fun parent that gets only the pets and hugs. I know he loves the dog and the dog loves him but I don't think he'd be able to take care of him and get up at 6 a.m. to walk him. My baby is also too used to the house and us and he'll probably be stressed out if I move him. Should I take the dog with me without telling my soon-to-be ex, or should I leave the dog with him? Another thing I need advice for is, should I leave him a note or a message with any explanation? Update 1. First, I'd like to thank everyone who commented on my previous post. It really helped put things in perspective for me. A few people asked for an update. It will be a lengthy one, so brace yourselves. One particular comment stuck out to me, that my pet doesn't know what's best for them and they could roll in literal shit and be happy, which really solidified my decision. As a preface, I'd like to apologize. I was paranoid that I could be found out, so I altered a couple of details in the original, one of which was that we owned a cat, not a dog. However, I was still doing 90% of the caring for the cat. On to the update. After reading all the comments and making the decision to take the cat, I called my best friend, her boyfriend and my parents to tell them I'm breaking up and discuss logistics. I also told them to not mention anything in writing on the off chances that SO sees the messages. It took me quite some time to put everything in motion, 3 weeks to be precise, in which time I was doing my best to act like everything was okay while secretly moving some of my stuff to my parents' place to ease the final load. Finally, last Friday morning, my best friend, her boyfriend and my dad came. We loaded up everything on my father's truck and left. The whole ordeal took 1.5 HRS. I was honestly amazed how much stuff I managed to accumulate for just 2 years. I took everything that I paid for out of my pocket, including a monitor and a headset that I lent him due to his equipment breaking, and he never bought new ones. The only thing I left was a queen-size bed I bought shortly after moving in. I also made sure to log into X's World of Warcraft account to cancel his subscription, which was paid from my bank account. I left a note on his desk that basically said, "Do not panic, you have not been robbed." I just took all my stuff and left. I'm taking the cat with me because I don't trust you to take care of her properly. Do not call me, my friends or my family. We have already had the talk, so there's nothing else to say. Have a nice life, your ex. I didn't tell him I knew about the cheating because at this point it was irrelevant. In retrospect, it was just the last straw on top of many other problems. But hindsight is always 20/20. I blocked his number and never looked back. Sure enough, he messaged me on WhatsApp as soon as he came back to the empty flat. The gist of the messages was that we could have done it the Civil War, LMAO, and why did I take the cat this way? We raised her together and he loved her. He also tried to call 3 times but gave up soon after. I then blocked him on WhatsApp as well. The next few days were pretty uneventful. Yesterday, he showed up at my workplace unannounced. I was pretty annoyed but didn't want to make a scene in front of the colleges, so I took a break and went out with him to the park across the street. Knowing him, he wouldn't just fuck off and leave me alone. He said he wanted closure and that I owed it to him after all these years. The conversation was mostly boring, so I'll highlight the important details. He said he wanted my monitor back and that he's willing to pay for it or trade me his new one, which is better, but wasn't with the same curves that he was used to. I told him that I like my monitor and tough luck. The best part is he went out, bought a new monitor, set it up to play WoW, but realized that I also took the headset. He then asked his mother to buy him one and she bought headphones without a mic. Pity. He asked to have the cat back. He offered me money, offered me all his crypto savings, and even offered me 60k gold in WoW LMAO. I told him some things can't be bought with money. He then asked to co-parent, and when I said no to that too, he asked to at least say goodbye to her in person, also denied. I brought up that I'm the cat's primary caregiver and he can't even clean her shit. He replied he could, when push comes to shove, but didn't since I was doing those things anyway, despite him being in the flat almost 24/7. I also pointed out that if he really loved the cat that much, he'd want the best for her and to be with the one who takes care of her, instead of wanting to keep her for selfish reasons. He kind of agreed on that. The most baffling part, he offered to pay me to go grocery shopping together. We used to do that all the time when we were together. I pointed him to a couple of sites where he can buy groceries and have them delivered. He said it was too much work. I told him to adjust and evolve. He also apologized one too many times for hurting me, to which I replied every time I wasn't hurt, I was just disgusted and cringed at the conversations I read, to which he got offended and mumbled that it was private, you know. Not once did he mention the side check, even then he didn't have the balls to admit to the affair. In their messages there was a recurring joke that if he comes to the hotel where she works, they'd have to fuck in the janitor's room. I brought her up a couple of times, told him I wish them both the very best, and since I left him the bed, he doesn't have to worry about fucking in the janitor's room anymore. He asked to be friends multiple times. I told him, also multiple times, he betrayed me and he's a pathological liar and I don't want to be friends with a dishonest person. He legit couldn't comprehend how his dishonesty impacts a potential friendship. He said he wanted to tell me he wasn't committed to me anymore but couldn't bring himself to do that. I pointed out the hypocrisy of him blowing up at me for platonically talking to male friends online, but he cheats the moment a semi-attractive woman comes his way. He said that a woman cheating on a man is the greatest sin, but a man cheating on a woman is not so severe. What the actual fuck? The rest of the conversation was him trying to play buddy-buddy and talk to me about his life and me reminding him that I'm not interested in his life and that he's a closed chapter to me. After what seemed to be eternity, we said our, hopefully, final goodbyes and I went back to work. In conclusion, for the past week since I left, I've felt like a huge load had dropped off my shoulders. I have all the time in the world, I'm working on myself, I'm reconnecting with people I haven't talked to in years. I'm trying to live my best life and I don't regret anything. There were good times, there were bad times. It was a valuable experience and a lesson learned what to look for in a partner and, more importantly, what not to overlook. Huge thanks to everyone that commented on my post. You really gave me the push I needed to make what I hope is the right decision. Update 2. I was contemplating whether to write this last update or not. A bunch of things have happened since I last posted and eventually, I figured we are all more or less people who laugh at their own farts and enjoy the occasional justice boner, so I decided y'all might appreciate how karma has caught up with X. Disclaimer and some background. I left out a lot of information in the original post and altered a lot of details to make sure X does not find the post and connect the dots. Our real ages are 28, him, 33 me, and 34, side chick. X and I were together for almost 7 years. Note 4. X had a chronic disease, nothing fatal if treated, very manageable and a lot of people with the condition can work. He was of course using it as an excuse not to work, even online work, and mooch off me. We lived with his mother who was supporting his narrative that he is too sick to work. X was abusive, first only verbally but it progressed to physical abuse. I omitted most of this information in the first post because I wanted an unbiased opinion whether to take the cat or not. Even though the cheating was the last nail in the coffin of our relationship, I was actually contemplating leaving him for almost a year before the actual fact and on occasions where he ramped up the abuse. I will withhold giving examples for the time being because the topic might be traumatic for some readers. My last update ended with my ex coming to work to offer me pixel money for my cat. This was in August 2022. I vacated his flat at the end of July. I thought everything was said and done and I would not hear from him again. Spoiler, I was wrong. Since the breakup he has messaged me about every 3 months on Discord for various bullshit, like how he lost his best friend or asking for photos of the cat. I didn't block him there in case either of us needed to exchange items we forgot at our respective places. Sometime in March I found out by chance that he's still using my old League account. He has been banned on 3 different accounts for toxicity. I gave him the password while we were dating but I did not think he would have the audacity to continue using it after we broke up. The kicker is, all it would take would be to ask me to use it and I would have no problems with it. It really rubbed me the wrong way that he could message me with his woe is me crap on 4 different occasions but conveniently forgot to mention that he is still playing on my account. I wondered for about a week whether to let it slide or to just change the password, then he contacted me again about wanting to ask me something. I shut this down and reminded him that I explicitly told him not to contact me. He said okay. This lasted for a fortnight until he messaged me again, saying that he will ask his question regardless. I pointed out how I told him not to contact me and he could not respect even that. So he has learned nothing as he still does not give a fuck about other people's boundaries. The question was, what did it feel like to be with a complete monster for 7 years? Why did you stay for so long? Apparently the lad was going through some kind of epiphany phase. There were a lot of crocodile tear-laced explanations that followed. The gist of it was that he was doing some reflections. He realized he is a complete lunatic and needs help and apologized for how he behaved. I also found out that he spent all his savings and disability money, including the crypto he offered me for the cat. So he could not take me up on the offer to buy my LOL account. Sag. Also, to nobody's surprise, his little affair did not work out. I did not ask for details but what he said was, I think I finally met a person who is more sick and broken inside than me, which is quite an achievement. Few months prior to this revelation, a WoW friend from the side chick's country messaged me. For context, we are all Europeans and play on the same servers. Friend knew my side of the story and when he found out that side chick is flying to my and ex's country, he put 2 and 2 together. He told me he does not expect much from their relationship since a year ago the chick was dating a mate of his, broke his heart and flew somewhere else for the next WoW guy that gave her attention. Knowing these facts and after what my ex said, I mentioned to him how it was ironic that he cried cheating if I was 5 minutes late after work, but decided to involve himself with a woman who was practicing cheating as a sport. He agreed that it was quite ironic indeed and that he had to lay in the bed that he made, which was sort of mature on his part I suppose. Also, did I mention he was too dumb to wire his own debit card to his WoW account? This is why he could not play anymore. Well, yeah, but I guess also because he lost his sugar mommy that was paying for it and failed to secure another. As for me, Kitty and I are thriving. I am active. I lost 12 kilograms since the breakup and I'm getting back in shape, even though I lost the excess weight the moment I dumped the ex. I have reconnected with most of my friends and apologized for not contacting them very much in the past 7 years and explained why. They were very understanding and things have gone very much to how they were before. I have also met the most decent, kind and compassionate man out there. So, life is looking good. Thank you for all the support, Reddit. Thank you for reading and have a great day.